So it's obvious we don't have a quorum, but that's all right. We can still have a meeting. So we should still do a roll call. So, Michael, are you here?
Michael Griffin, present.
Eva Boyce, present.
Don Margison, present.
Susan Sterry, present. And on Zoom is Carrie Rubenstein and also Celeste Brooks. And here, so we can't vote on anything, but we certainly can discuss all we would like to do. So that takes care of approval of minutes from last month.
Table that to the next meeting?
Yeah. Donation updates. We have some in the pipeline, so hopefully next time we'll be able to report more on those. But our $150 one and our $50 one went through, right? They were approved by City Council.
Yeah,
so.
they were approved by the city council, and on this upcoming agenda will be an additional donation from Carrie Rubenstein. That's all teed up for acceptance for
Okay.
Monday night.
We'll move on to update on Moose Plate paperwork.
Could
So,
I say something about
Sure.
the donation?
oh, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just thinking it would be great. What I'm doing is wiring, or will be wiring once it's approved, an IRA distribution to the city, and it just seems like that would be something we should think about with other donors. Is to, it allows me not to pay taxes on that income if it goes directly to the charitable or the town. So it's something to think about in terms of a selling point for future donations.
Thank you. I didn't realize that either. So that is a good point to bring up to people going forward. So, yes.
Yeah, everybody's looking at year end. What are they going to do to reduce their taxes? And
Maybe we
we
could
have
put
something for them.
we could put legal notice in the paper if you like to. It's the end of the year for the city. Oh, well, not for the city, but again, thank you, Carrie, for that and for the passing on the information about. Is that a new rule or fairly recent?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, I always questioned it when I guess Suzanne raised that it was tax deductible. And finally, I did some research and talked to my accountant, and the rule is basically if you don't get any personal benefit from it, anything you donate to the city is tax deductible. If it was something like where you got something for it personally, then it's not deductible.
Oh, okay. Good to know. You've made us an expert.
And Carrie, just to flesh that out, I think the other point that was important is that by wiring it directly from your IRA account to the city, there's no moment at which it becomes taxable in your hands.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So it's a good thing.
Yep.
So that's why the wiring, it doesn't go through like her checking or whatever and then come to.
So she doesn't have to report that I got $2,000 and then it goes out. It's straight through.
Oh, that's good to know, seriously.
I give the update.
Yes, update on the Moose Plate paperwork.
Yep. So as we discussed at the last meeting, the city council did accept the Moose Plate grant. I have the DES, or not the DES, I have the documentation to sign for the acceptance of the grant, so I just need to actually print it and sign it the old-fashioned way because it comes as a PDF. But that's no problem. I took a quick skim at the terms and conditions, and it should be fine. In addition, Public Works is reaching out to Riverside Pickering Marine to see, if they need to up, because the proposal now is a bit out of date, to see how close they are to the original. So we are reaching out right now. Corin's going to start that process because, of course, he was involved initially, but we are bringing on a couple new people at Public Works. We're finally being able to fill a couple of vacancies.
Oh, good.
So it may be that Corin will be handing this off to a new person who has construction background experience. So that is in the works, which is to get the updated estimate, see if it's still close enough in line. We have had some conversation because we have a city project that is moving slowly, but is moving, to deal with some outfalls or put in some new outfalls. And so when we get the proposal from the new updated proposal, we're going to evaluate whether it makes sense to recommend like doing the phase one, but how we might address the permitting, knowing that we had 2 stages to this proposal. It was
Right.
going to be stage 1 to get the, the easy work done, if you will, the boulders back, and reset the wall. But then we had that second stage, which is more more invasive, more,
Oh, there's a lot of erosion. It's never been.
exactly. And there's going to be more construction and more disturbance. That's the word I'm looking for. So we're going to look at that once we get the updated proposal to see, does it make sense to wrap some of that into our other outfall work that we know is coming. So we figured we'll see what we get, and what the numbers look like, and then, kind of go forward. If we need to consult back with the committee, we will. But that's where things stand, which is we're moving it forward. The only kind of caveat, and we'll talk a little bit about when we get to the point of graves, is if the proposal cost turns out to be a lot higher, we'll have to consider whether to try and get a second or third one just to, for our competitive processes. On the other hand, it's the company that we often work with because they are in this area, they're familiar with it, they tend to give us the most competitive prices. We use them often for other city work. So we're just going to wait and see what we get,
Okay.
and then kind of evaluate. But that's in process, and you may have a different face to interface with as we go forward. But it's all looking good.
Yeah.
So-
my only comment is, and it's changed since then, I couldn't get anybody else to come and look
That
because
has
they
been
said it was way too small
And
a
that
project
was-
for them. So
That has been our experience, which is why we'll wait to see what they give us.
Yeah.
But sometimes just doing that extra due diligence by making a phone call, then when we go to
Exactly.
bring it through financing, we have that. Yep, we made a few more calls to see if anyone else wanted to propose on it, and they didn't. So,
And I would think this would be the time I should bring up that the second half, down in there, there's possibilities that there could be remains there because there are several headstones that have been buried. They're turned upside down, and unless you're really looking, you don't know that there are headstones there. So I don't know what that's going to mean to anything. But
that would mean when we go to scope out stage 2, there's definitely an archaeological.
Exactly, yeah, I knew that. So that, regardless of whether Pickering does it or the
Right.
city does it. And I'm not sure, I mean, it may be possible the way it's, no, you can't, because there's one that's right down there. No, it's going to be an issue, or
Could be.
be part of
Yep.
whatever's going to take place. So.
And won't the state archaeology people, do they charge us?
Yep.
They do.
We don't use them. We have to find a
An
local.
independent?
Yes, and there are, and the city's worked
Yeah.
with some of them locally.
Yep.
That's
I thought
why.
the state, oh, I'm so glad I asked.
That's why it's been an issue with correcting the
Right.
headstones,
Right.
because it's not free. You have to hire somebody.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
More grant writing?
yeah, but that's down the road, so. Update on edits for the rack card.
Yep. So, we heard back from Valerie Cunningham from the Black Heritage Trail with regard to the draft, and she had just a minor suggestion change to this little section, and I didn't print because it was color and
Yeah.
trying to not overprint.
Right.
But you remember in the rack card, there was this little blurb at the bottom, which is really hard to read if it's not up on your computer screen.
Oh, yeah.
If the rack card is this size,
That,
Yeah?
No, they're different.
They're different, they're just,
Yeah, go ahead.
Front and back.
yeah, it's front and back.
Just because it was color, I thought it
Yeah.
would see better.
We'll look at it together.
Okay, sure.
But she suggested changing some of the language to formerly enslaved Africans,
Yeah.
which Stephanie Secor did make that change. Ava was kind of looped into that. And Stephanie has.
Down underneath where it says,
Yeah,
oh,
and
okay.
you can
I
hardly-
can't read.
Small print.
Yeah, okay.
You can hardly see it, yeah.
And I guess, so that was two things. So Stephanie did go out and get costs for Vistaprint. And, hold on, I have that here. Where did I shuffle it? I had it right here. Was very, I thought, cost effective. Okay, Vistaprint, for $95, you get 500. For $120, you get 1,000. So that seemed to make more sense to us to order
yeah.
just the 1,000. We would take it out of our historic cemeteries fund. So we thought that was fine. And I wanted to just come and update you, make sure you're good with 1,000. And then when I actually printed this off and thought, well, if this is the size, the actual size of the rack card, given that it's very hard to read that little bit, I wanted to give you an opportunity. Are you good with it the way it is, or do you want Ava to kind of work with Stephanie and
I
play around
wonder
with this
if
or not?
if the picture can be diminished a bit and then the font's changed a little bit to make it is really small.
That's
but-
why if you're okay working with Stephanie to
Yeah.
tweak it, but the committee's relatively okay with, we thought 1,000 made sense for the price differential.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that. If we're going to put it on there, we should make it at least readable with glasses on, so. Yeah, and that makes sense could shift everything up a little bit, too. The picture.
I love the picture, but I don't think it serves the purpose to have such small print.
Right, exactly.
All right, so if it's your okay, Ava, I'll have you work with Stephanie.
Yes, of course.
On that, and just know, when you guys are okay, we're good for
Okay,
that.
good to go. Great.
Yep, and we'll aim for the
We can
1,000.
take care of that soon then.
Yep.
I was just going to show Michael. Celeste and Carrie, are you all right with that? Did you hear?
I can't really see it, so but,
Right.
It sounds good to me.
It's smaller than on an aspirin bottle, let's put it that way. So that's a good comparison, most people. So it would be just some adjustments and, maybe like Eva said,
Shrink
making
the picture a little.
shrink it and things like that. How about you, Celeste?
Okay, I'm with Gary. I can't see it, but yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, there are no major changes from the last time when everybody saw it, so, okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
And I'm glad Valerie was happy with it. I talked to Joanna one time, I ran into her, our city councilor, and she was really happy that, they had thought of including them in the process going forward,
Oh, my
so.
gosh.
And probably someday, maybe, I spoke to her about that too, maybe one or two people from their committee could join this committee or whatever, but that's down because there are a number of, not everyone is slaves in some of these cemeteries, but there is a lot of Black heritage in all of our cemeteries, so.
But they also have wisdom about the process. They went through things themselves when they were trying to get the burial ground
Right.
going. Yeah, so they have some wisdom that we don't have.
Right. So, so that's down the line, hopefully, after the holidays. Update on
Point of Graves. Got
Point
that one
of
too.
Graves. Yeah.
Okay. So we, Public Works has been looking at the Weston and Sampson proposal and kind of looking at all of the other work that we're seeing we're probably going to need to to do in that area. Because originally we were leaning towards Weston and Sampson, trying to hook it into when they were already on site for Prescott Park, because there's work obviously scheduled for Prescott Park. So we were trying to leverage that. And so then we've been, we've got a lot of projects because we're working on the capital improvement plan and the DOT plan, because there's a bridge out there, as you know, that is going back on the list. Because the goal was to, get 10 more years out of it, but eventually the bridge abutments will be replaced, and we're all looking at climate change, and we're also doing a climate action plan. So in kind of evaluating this, the conversation we were having just the other day, given all of these pieces, is maybe it would make sense to, two things. First, we thought maybe we'd reach out to other firms and just see what a little bit of, less testing, but just enough to kind of understand, is there maybe a 10-year fix for the wall? Just, because how we didn't want to put too much money into it. And so knowing that we've got new staff coming on board who will have some bandwidth to pick up some of these projects and give them a new look, maybe, sometimes people come with a different lens, different experience.
Different connections, yeah.
Yeah, that maybe we take a look at, is there some cost-effective, investment we could make in the wall, while we then, as part of a more comprehensive plan for that whole area, because, the water's going to go somewhere. So if you're building walls, or you're, it
Right.
can go around the walls, or does it go more to other structures? So we were trying to give it a fresh look from a coordinated point of view, but we want to do something with the walls. So we thought, with new staff coming on board, maybe we kind of reach out, kind of see, do we do some testing, but maybe it's a smaller scope of testing to see what we could do safely and cost effectively to get the walls in good shape, and then make sure that the Point of Graves is considered as part of that bigger plan,
Right.
which is going to have the more substantial testing and look at the climate change impacts, because we're already looking at them for that whole area, and we know we've got more work
Right.
not too far down the pike. Like, if we can come up with a good 10-year, maybe it's not quite as beautiful, but get us some stability for some of those walls, and then do a larger project. So that's what we were thinking, is use some of our new staff to take another look at it and kind of really plan out the other, look at the other work that we know is happening, to try and maximize the value, because we know with construction costs that we're seeing,
Yeah.
we know funds are going to be tight. So we're trying to really think, okay, what's the really best use? And maybe there's like I said, a short-term fix, but we know it's short-term with the intention that there's a longer-term view of protecting that whole area, frankly.
Right.
Yeah.
The Friends of South End, I sort of already planted the seed that it may not be doable to rebuild the section that's really sunk
Yep.
down, and that we certainly could repair the other half.
That's what
so,
we're kinda-
and I already,
Yep.
when I,
Yep.
so I've planted the seed when it first came up. I said, we
See?
have to have tested, we have to do this, we have to do that, before we just throw out,
Yeah.
thousands of dollars of money to see if it's even worthwhile. So we certainly could get bids on the wall that's there. Really is not worth saving, even the one that's around it, but it is the original. There certainly is a way to, I forgot what they call it, but overspray it again.
Well, right.
Overspray it again, the original wall will be there, and that overspray is quite old too, so that's part of the history of it
Right.
now. I mean, I'm being serious, it's
Yeah.
part of the history of it.
Yep.
So we could certainly do that. I mean, because that lower section, I would just want to, I wish we could have a dipstick and just drill a hole and put a dipstick down and find out, if there's water
And
there.
that was kind of our thought. It may be a kind of a two-pronged, so a smaller, skinnier scope to get a little bit of information to help inform and by a temporary fix, I'm thinking it's a 10 to 20, 30-year lasting fix. Well, the bigger, like,
Right.
what do we do about the changing water levels?
Is the, here's the end of the cemetery, here's the bridge.
Yep.
That whole wall's being redone, is that what I'm hearing?
Well,
Or-
like I said, we're taking a fresh,
Okay.
I mean, there is a master plan.
Right, yeah.
But there are elements of that as we learn more every day, and as you look at the other projects that we've got in the pipeline, do you adjust elements of that? Do you go back and say, okay, well, based on what we know today, it's a little different from what we knew even 5 years ago? So do we need, you don't stay with a plan if conditions have changed. If you need to take another look, then you start a process to take another look. And it may be, yep, okay, it still works, and then we add elements to it, or, oh, this might need a little of an adjustment because there are things happening that we didn't know, looks different today than it did before. So I think we'd like to give it the fresh look, but, so we have the person we have in mind who might pick this up, I think is starting the 12th. So give that person a couple of weeks to get their feet on the ground, but we thought this person coming in might be a good
Yeah.
fresh energy to take a look at this.
Are they an engineer or?
Close.
Yeah.
Lots of experience.
Great.
But not an engineer, but a lot of good
Enough to
experience.
know.
A nice, yeah.
You don't have to be a doctor to be able to do.
Yeah, how sometimes
doctor's
they're
work,
great
yeah.
nurse practitioners. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that in the construction side. You might not have the degree, but boy, you know how to solve a problem and how to manage a contract. So,
Cool.
I'm actually relieved by what you're saying, because I always thought that Point of Graves could be like the orphan child or something in a project with a scope. I mean, it's all there in one geographical location, and my only concern, and it's not a big one, is that 20 years down the road, when the master plan is in function, that somebody who isn't here today is going to look at the Point of Graves wall and say, well, it's good enough for now, and they're not going to include it as we anticipate that they will.
so I guess you'll have to keep nourishing and bringing
Right.
along members for
Yes.
this committee
Exactly.
to share your
I hope
passion
I
and
live that long,
interest.
Suzanne.
Well, like I said, you bring in the next
That's right, the next
committee.
generation.
Yeah.
Celeste, are you listening?
Yeah.
Yep, I'm here.
You're the next generation.
You're the next generation.
Okay.
So I'll keep you updated at the next meeting. Hopefully I'll have another update, because probably be beginning of January. Maybe that person can even come to the meeting, so.
Well, what I am happy to hear about is that Point of Graves is going to be part of the consideration going forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It never should have been left out. Oh, well, I say shouldn't, but if you don't have an advocate, you're not going to be on the stage. So I'm really glad about that. And we can always get, estimates for the rest of the wall. So, and I know there was a big concern about all the power lines or utilities underneath and everything. So it
That-
sounds great.
That was part of the, as we kind of were teasing out the scope and thinking, just.
I mean, I just want a dipstick. You can tell
Right.
us what's there.
Yeah.
Michael, do you have any comments or?
No, not necessarily. It's a very fluid situation, so.
Yeah, but everything sounds. You're a construction guy. Everything makes sense to you.
Keep the process moving, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have anything to?
Not on this, no.
Okay. All right, ladies, are you all set? We'll just table this and see what comes back in January.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm really trying not to forget Zoom, so.
Thank you.
Yeah. The next one goes to
Signage.
signage for the cemeteries, both for dogs and what time of day we can use the cemetery.
Yep. So, Public Works is working on mocking up some language related to the dog laws, leash and pick up waste, and trying to find some way to use some language and that talks about respect, like try to flag that this is a really special place. So they were going to try and mock up something that we could look at. And then I did, as I reported, talk to the police chief to kind of get his thoughts on the dawn to dusk. And it was interesting. He had a little different view and I was cognizant, Celeste, of kind of what you brought to the table, namely the concern that, because it gets dark at 4:30,
Pitch deck.
that there are some members of the community that do like to walk in some of the cemeteries at night, or comfortable, or if it's a moonlit night, there's plenty of light, and how the police would need to respond. And the police chief was sensitive, I think very rightly so. I thought he had a really good point. He's like, yeah, we do try and use discretion, but on the other hand, they have to be careful because you don't want to look like you're being discriminatory, right? In how you're applying that dawn to dusk, in the sense that you really want to, if someone's there in the evening and they shouldn't be there because the signage is clearly, dawn to dusk, you need to apply the law evenly, right? And move everyone along. And that goes, and I was, like I said, sensitive to the conversation that you had at the last meeting. So I wanted to share that with you, that his perspective was, if we're going to sign it, and there are a lot of cemeteries, we had this conversation, a lot of cemeteries in the area are dawn to dusk,
Right.
So it's not unusual in any sense of the word. And I wanted to report that back. So I didn't talk to the city manager yet, and it was also very busy. So by the time I got Mark's input, there wasn't a lot of spaciousness to have this conversation. So I thought I'd share it. And
Would it be appropriate to reach out to the animal control officer if in fact this sign has some
Yeah.
meaning? Because she's pretty tenacious.
um,
She get on the South Cemetery and throw people out.
yeah, yeah, I can certainly do that. I know we all, I think there's unanimity that signage with regard to the dog waste and dogs being on leash would be probably helpful because people may not realize that those laws still apply to the cemetery. So we were all kind of like, yeah, that makes, at a minimum, let's do that. And we talked about where to place the signage, maybe find some signage that's a little more, I don't want to say attractive, but, we have different ways of making signage. And some of it, if it's just a road sign, it's a little different than something that's going to be at the cemetery. So that's why we wanted to mock something up and kind of get your view on it. So I think that reminding people about the rules related to dogs in cemeteries, there seemed to be good common ground that really made sense to remind people and see if that solves the problem, right?
Are we limited by the size of the sign? Because once you start saying respectful, using the fact that these are both designated historic cemeteries, please be respectful. These
Yep.
are,
That's why we wanted to bring a mock-up, because we were trying to decide, as we were kind of just talking it out, would it be helpful to make a bigger sign that kind of talks about etiquette, if you will,
right.
or otherwise encourage appropriate
Right.
behavior in the cemetery, with reference to the law, just to let people know, yeah, this is real, particularly with regards to dog waste and dogs being on leash. So,
And truthfully, I I never even thought of the approach that way, but the respectfulness. I mean,
You can thank
that's-
Corin for that. That was his word.
Oh, when I talked to him.
No, those public works folks, they got a lot of good thinking going on over there.
Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes total sense. I mean, we went through not us, but I mean, the city's gone through the whole process to get them on registries and everything, and because they are important, then reminding people respectfully,
Yep.
hey, I think that's a great idea if it works out, yeah.
If it works for you, I will continue to kind of chase this down a little bit. Like I said, I didn't have a chance to talk to the city manager. I can come in with, by the January meeting, a mock-up for you to look for.
Great.
And then we can think a little bit more. I'll see if she has a strong view of the dawn to dusk,
Right.
view. And I'll see if I get any other input. I'll kind of reach out to the animal control officer and others.
Right.
But I wanted to share.
I'm wondering, just out loud, a thought
Yeah.
came. I'm wondering how many people we would be appeasing by putting dawn to dusk instead of cameras, as opposed to not putting anything at all. You know what I mean? Do we really have to do this? Because a handful of people have asked, and I'm not just respecting them, I'm just, another thing to consider. I don't know, so.
Right. We, you're trying to, we have, issues of vandalism that occur, throughout the city, and you always have to weigh that, is this really going to solve that particular issue of
Right.
concern, and how does that impact others who use or visit the same space?
Right.
And there are pros and cons to that. There isn't always a right answer. There are just trade-offs.
Right.
And we know cameras are not really feasible or the right solution there.
No.
And it may be, part of it is, like, I know we were going to do some cleaning up, and that might
Right. He
help.
said this-
And, so there could be a look at all the pieces that,
Yeah, if we don't get a lot of snow, they're going to go down in there because they'll have time to, do some extra stuff they don't do during the year. Is everybody fine with that? We'll just wait.
and I'll report
Yes.
back in
Yeah.
January with hopefully a mock-up and any other information I get.
Just a quick story. I have to share this about Sagamore. I was in Sagamore Cemetery. This was a few weeks ago, a month. And I had my 5-year-old grandson with me. And we're walking through the cemetery. And this dog came running up to us. And then this man came walking up. And my grandson, before I could say anything, said, "No dogs in the cemetery." And the man got mad. And he goes, "I know the Griffins." And I said, "He's just 5. The signs are posted, and that's,
Good for him.
what he's taught is to obey the rules." And the guy sort of huffed and went on. But before I could even say anything, he was, "There are no dogs in the cemetery." So anyway, people still do it. Next is the New Hampshire State Registry of Historic Places sign markers. That's what I think both you ladies, probably in your paperwork at home. It's the sign that we could put up for Union Cemetery that acknowledges that it's on the New Hampshire State Registry, and just the metal sign is $50, and I don't know how much the other sign would. The granite post. I mean, the city might even have a granite post or something that it could be used. It sort of got lost in the shuffle, so I wanted to just bring it up real quickly. We need some sort of signage there to let people know. I think the only signs there now are the blue boards, and then there is the sign for North Cemetery is there, but there's nothing right there to say that Union is on the New Hampshire State Registry. So, I mean, ideally, we could even attach this to that beautiful wall that's on the outside. I don't know what we'd want to do, but just food for thought. Maybe for next time, we really should
Yeah.
sign it somehow.
Why don't I take this and I will talk to Public Works and see what they think. We do sometimes have pieces of granite. I like that.
Yeah.
In, from other projects.
Right.
I mean, obviously it would have to be set properly, but let me talk to Public Works about that.
Okay.
Okay.
There's a big pile of granite out on Constitution.
Yep.
Peter's looking to get rid
That's what
of.
I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. Okay, that sounds great.
Some nice stuff there.
Yeah.
Headstone, this is, you ladies won't be able to see it. It's only about headstones that I cleaned personally. We have been getting requests from out of state to check on headstones and, send pictures back or clean them or what have you. The city got it, not me. The city got it, and Valerie forwarded it on to me. There was a family that had some in-ground headstones at Calvary Cemetery, and when they called Calvary, they were told that they just don't have enough help to go out and clean headstones or bring them back up or what have you, and that maybe they should contact the city. So they did. I spoke to them. Very nice people from Florida. I was able to find their headstones, and I was able to clean them. So it was not a big process or anything like that. But I just wanted everybody to be aware that we are getting those kinds of requests. And I didn't contact Calvary because I didn't want to set any kind of precedent that you would just go run out there and clean headstones if they got a phone call. If we got a personal email to us, that's one thing. And the other thing when it came up when I was doing this, Suzanne, if you could go to the headstones, they're right past, there's a couple of these.
Yep.
For a second, I panicked because I didn't realize that in-ground headstones, like this one has a lot of moss on it, way more than even some of the bigger ones. And if you can go to the next one, there were 4 of them. That didn't have that much. I think he was on the Iowa. That one was just saturated with moss. And then the next one, I think, and that's the 4th one. And if you go back just 2,
Yep,
I
yep,
think
sorry.
I lost the fine. Right there, this one. No,
Sorry.
sorry.
I'm too fast.
Yeah, that's okay.
Come on. There we go.
This one right here, when that's dry, and I panicked and I thought, what have I done to this headstone? All the different colorations and everything. Where it's black was caked on dirt. And all of them were like that, or not the one that was raised, but all the ones that were in the ground had, after I took all the moss and lichen off, and I cleaned it with the D2, it just had like a thin layer where all the lichen and everything had. So I had to go back through, and for some reason, the finished products, the pictures didn't come out. So I went back through, sprayed these, and took the scraper, and so now the whole headstone, or I guess it's still a headstone, is clean, and it's all the marble that's there. But I really panicked, and it really made me stop to think, I don't know, what damage I really could do to them, but it did give me pause for the thing. But I did it personally, so I don't think.
Sue?
Yeah?
Sue, this is Carrie.
Yep.
So it's very nice that you did this for these people, and I'm wondering, should we be charging for this and having somebody else do it, or at least getting some fee? I mean, you did a lot of work, and what if we get more of these requests? That, you're only one person, or we're only a small committee.
Right.
But I'm just thinking, you know, because we had some of my relatives' graves cleaned at a private cemetery.
Right.
It costs a lot of money.
Yeah. I thought about that, Carrie, and what I don't think that,
Future.
I don't think that's a bad idea. If we start to get a whole lot more and they're bigger and more time consuming, then yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But again, we'd have to run it by the city, because I wouldn't want to take on the, what the liability would be for the city. You know, I don't want to get everybody into hot water because I cleaned a headstone, but yes, I think that should be in our thoughts and going forward, to consider that if we start getting more and more. Because Michael happened to clean that headstone. It was already clean, but we got someone else that wanted me to check on their headstone, and we did. But Michael had already cleaned the whole family anyway, so. And then there was another woman from DAR that contacted. She was down in Texas, too. So, no, I think that's a good idea. But and the other point I want to make out about this, I did this on a Saturday when it was exactly 45 degrees and it was extremely windy. So the D2 really works. You know, some people really were concerned that I don't know which way, but some of the other ones that came out really well, that was all done on a 45-degree day. So I can testify that we can do them on a cold day. But I'll make note on our agenda to put it in other notes about charging in the future.
My
You're
recommend,
asking for a donation.
Or a donation, yeah.
that was
Donation.
going to be
Yeah.
my,
Yeah.
that's what I would do, is just, you know,
That's true.
suggest, and I
He who
would,
worries about fundraising didn't even think about donating. Go ahead.
and sometimes it can help if you suggest a range.
Yeah.
You know, because you don't know their means, but,
He's,
you know, and send them the link and just say,
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what, I'm a
I'm happy to
sucker.
do this volunteer act of kindness for you. Would you please support our efforts?
Okie dokie. So, okay, on that, I just wanted to everybody know that we are facing something. If we go back to the green door,
Yep.
this door is on, up on South Street, that you ladies can't see, but it is falling apart. And this is the latest picture. Originally, a month ago, the bottom bar wasn't coming off as badly as it is now. And Peter Rice is aware of this. I don't know if he's contacted you or anything, or,
Did you ever get a price from Andy?
no, he never showed or called or anything, so. And
Andy Croto, the welder.
right, yeah.
He told me he went and looked at it, so.
I can
Maybe
call
he
him.
sent it to Peter.
I'll see him
Well, I
tonight. I'll
asked,
ask him.
when I saw Peter at
I
the.
want to, dangle a carrot if Peter's got something else in mind.
Right. Well, I saw Peter at the Veterans Day celebration down at the park, and he said, I mentioned Andy's name. He goes, I'll take care of it. So, and then he said something about you. He goes, so I thought he was going to, contact you. I think he said, does Michael know about it or something? And I said, yeah, he's aware of it. So and that you gave me Andy's name.
When I see him, I'll ask him what he's got in mind. But
Okay.
it definitely needs to be done.
Yeah, and it
It's going to
is
fall off
worse.
its hinge.
Yeah, before. And I was
It could, it could.
Yeah. All right, so that's all set. Headstone signage. Oh, did you have a chance to look into this signage that you,
Yes and no.
Michael? Yeah.
Dick Adams, myself, John Shagden, and Kevin McLeod have all bought into this. And Teddy Connors as well. He's a trustee of the Perpetual Care Society funds. They'd like to move forward with it. I'm still looking for some input as to what type of signs and where would they be located.
They didn't have any specific, oh, yeah.
One at the main gate, similar to ones that are scattered around Portsmouth. And is that an independent contractor that you work with? There's one down on the Mill Pond Causeway, there's one at the North Cemetery.
Oh, you mean the blue, I have the name of the company
Yeah.
that did that.
I could
Richard
envision
King-
that at the main gate, but then as you transverse through the cemetery, letting people know they're going from one section to another. I don't know if it'll confuse people, but
I would,
Dick worked on that with Richard Candy, those signs.
recently?
No, they're 10 or 15 years old. Richard Candy told me they did those signs in groups of 5 for about 6 years and went all over town, but, yeah, and Richard was on the
Yes.
board or whatever, but he
Probably-
also
He
said,
probably wrote them up, yeah.
and Dick was on it too.
Yes.
So I can get you the name of the company that
Yeah, that
does
would,
it.
that would be nice. You know, I don't want to leave Teddy Connors. That was one of his current wishes. And
How's he doing? He has cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's he doing?
pancreatic cancer is a tough one,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Okay, I'll get you the name. It's a company out of Canada because the process is so toxic, they won't make them in the United States. But you see it all over the place.
Okay.
The poly,
Yeah.
what they use. And they come in different colors, and I've seen them all over the country, usually at historic sites and a lot of state sites and stuff. But that's why they're made in Canada, because how toxic they are to make, not once they're out in the public,
Okay.
so. All right,
I'll push the process along.
okay. Name of sign company. And they did that under the city block grant, I believe. Other business, I don't have anything because I talked about the gate, the door right there. That was the only thing I hadn't included on this. There's a lot of stuff on this. You got a lot of irons in the fire, which is good because it's a slow process.
I think Max is waiting for the ground to freeze to get in there and take out several of those dead trees between the ball field and the Cotton Cemetery.
Oh, good. There are a couple of really big, totally dead trees up there over Cotton.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah,
The kids sneak through there all the time, so.
yeah. And they're big ones. It wouldn't take much, even though they're sort of secluded. Anybody else have any?
I've been pleased with Max. He seems to.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So when I became a member, it said the term of membership went through December. Does that automatically renew for us, or do we have a process for?
Oh, yeah, that was on was that on our last meeting or the meeting before? I think it was the meeting before.
They're 1-year terms?
Yeah, we're all together that we
yeah, you
exit
don't
at
have a
the same time.
stagger, as I recall, right?
It's not staggered, listed now.
All right, let me look into that, and I can always send a communication to the whole committee as to whether you need to fill out an application. So I will,
I think that was one of the things at the governance meeting, not just our committee, but
Right.
they were trying to
right, look at staggers.
write and see how they were going. I don't think last meeting, but the meeting before, so, okay.
All right, let me look at that.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, really. Anything else? Anybody win any money at the lottery? All right, well, you don't need a proposal to
Motion to adjourn?
second it? Second it, Eva.
I second.
We're done.
Good timing.